Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission, for this opportunity to speak. By way of introduction, I'm a resident of Milton, Delaware, and a retired registered landscape architect. I was registered to practice for 31 years.
And your name is?
Jeff Seemans.
Thank you.
Over my entire 42-year career, I was employed as a planner for the Newcastle County Department of Planning, 2 different consulting engineering companies, and I spent the last 22 years of my career as land resource manager for a private family-owned builder real estate developer. I'm here this evening to ask that you deny the approval of the Coral Lakes Cluster subdivision. I will attempt to be brief and to the point. My objection is based on the plan's almost complete lack of respect for the 152-acre site's intrinsic natural physical features, as well as the plan's lack of adherence to the cluster provisions of Sussex County's own zoning code. But first, I want to hold up a book published in 1969, written by one of the country's most famous landscape architects, Design with Nature. This book was and remains a seminal book on land planning and man's relationship to our planet. It's probably the greatest book on how best to plan land that has ever been written. Ian McHarg said that man must become the steward of the biosphere. To do this, he must design with nature. Please think of this title as I proceed, and I will be brief. I first want to discuss this project's impact on 3 natural resources: soils, wetlands, and forest, and 1 cultural resource. Soils, number 1. There are 4 soil types present on this 152-acre site. 3 of the 4 have very limited capacity to support homes with basements. 3 out of the 4. One of the 4, Fallsington Loam, has a very limited capacity for homes, even without basements. Very limited. What is the implication of this? I think it is easy to make the connection that these soils have a high water table. The State Plus report talks about how poorly drained these soils are. This has already been quoted by Mrs. Hicks. I will not repeat it. But that's an important statement. When you read a section of Chapter 115 from your own zoning code, from the cluster section. Number 5, stormwater management shall be, not may be, shall be designed to promote groundwater recharge and protect groundwater quality. When you look at the site plan and observe 13 different stormwater management ponds extending from Robbinsville Road all the way back to the farthest extent of the project, and factor in all of the impervious hard surfaces from 315 rooftops, private driveways, private and public sidewalks, I estimate over 14,000 linear feet of street in this community, all impervious cover. You can see that there is going to be a lot of stormwater runoff. Is there adequate permeability in these soils to allow the water within these ponds to percolate? Is this designing with nature? Wetlands. I won't be long on this, but I respectfully disagree with you, Mr. Chairman. This is not the end of this topic, and I will explain why. In the Plus report, it talks about the newest project application proposes to disturb and fill upwards of 25 acres of non-tidal wetlands. Only 5 acres of now jurisdictional wetlands under the new ruling will remain. Once again, this is an important statement. And why is that? Read item 6 from subsection E within the cluster development provision, design requirements for cluster development. Number 6, and I would like to say that the counsel sitting behind me referred to this sentence, but she added a word, and she added the word regulated. Let me read you the sentence from your own cluster provision. All lots shall be configured to be contained completely outside of all wetlands. Of all wetlands. This is from your zoning code. I am not reading this language and making it up. It says all wetlands. It does not differentiate between jurisdictional versus non-jurisdictional. It says all. And I'm curious if this ever goes to litigation and a judge reads this very simple one-line sentence, all lots shall be configured to be contained completely outside of all wetlands, I would be very curious how that judge might rule. Third is forest. I will not belabor this point. Clear cutting of forests will not stop in Sussex County until County Council passes a forest preservation ordinance. Period. End of sentence. Even the cluster ordinance is bipolar on this point. On the one hand, it talks about removal of healthy, mature trees shall be limited, but it also says that this does not inhibit the development of wooded parcels. But I ask you again, is this designing with nature? My last point on cultural. Reviewing the 339 pages of information about this project on the county's website, I noticed 4 maps, 2 from Watershed Eco and 2 from the National Wetlands Inventory maps. The pages are 192 and 240 from Watershed Eco, and page 229 and page 276 from the National Wetland Inventory map. All 4 maps show a label that says Nanacoke Indian Tribe, and then there's a word that was unintelligible to me. I could not read what the 4th word is, if it's even a word. But I could not find any comments from either the reviewing agencies or the applicant's consultants about the implications of what this label could mean in terms of an archaeological investigation. Quote, Nanacoke Indian Tribe, whatever the 4th word or symbol is. I will not even guess what could be discovered, but it could have an important impact on the site plan. Finally, I'll end with this. Subsection F, review procedures for cluster development, talks about a design which are superior. It lists 9 criteria. However, you will note that this one paragraph uses the word superior 2 times. Webster's defines superior as excellent of its kind. Oxford English Dictionary states higher in rank, status, or quality of high standard. Is this preliminary plan of a superior high standard, in your opinion, to warrant your support? If this plan is superior, why are 13 individual stormwater management ponds being proposed on highly questionable, poor drainage, high water table soils? How is that water going to percolate down? Is it superior if it fills almost all the wetlands in violation of the cluster section of your own zoning code that says all wetlands? It clear cuts 95 acres of mature forest when our planet is racing toward a climate apocalypse. It shows a very segmented walking trail system, highly dependent on the public sidewalks adjacent to the streets. It shows a very minimal perimeter buffer, especially adjacent to the existing subdivision. And only very narrow strips of forest are shown between lots that I guess they hope to preserve. I don't know what these strips are. I find it extremely difficult from my experience that these narrow strips could be preserved during site grading. I think the answer to the question of whether or not this is a superior cluster plan is no. And I hope this commission will reject this plan and send it back for a complete and total do-over. Thank you very much.
All right, sir, we thank you. All right, who's next?